The first time I realized someone was living in my house, I was standing in my own kitchen at 2:17 a.m., staring at a half-empty carton of milk that I had never opened. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 38 years old, a freelance graphic designer, and for the last 14 months I have lived completely alone in the old Victorian house at 47 Maplewood Lane. My parents left it to me when they died in a car accident 2 years ago. I kept telling myself the house was too big, too creaky, too full of memories, but it was paid for, and after my divorce I couldn't afford anything else. So I stayed. I had been away for 3 days visiting my sister in Chicago. I locked every door, every window. I even set the old alarm system my father installed in 1998. When I pulled into the driveway at 11:45 p.m., the house looked exactly as I had left it. Dark, silent, waiting. I dropped my suitcase in the foyer, kicked off my shoes, and went straight to the kitchen for a glass of water. The fridge light spilled across the tile floor like cold white blood, and there it was on the top shelf, right where I always put the milk I drink every single morning. A fresh carton of 2% milk, opened, with exactly half of it gone. My stomach dropped so fast, I actually grabbed the counter. I don't drink 2%. I'm lactose intolerant. I only keep almond milk. I stood there for a full minute, heart hammering against my ribs, telling myself I must have bought it and forgotten. Stress does that, right? The divorce, the grief, the endless deadlines. People forget things. But when I checked the trash, there was the empty almond milk carton I had finished the day before. I left exactly where I remembered throwing it. I opened the fridge wider. A block of cheddar cheese I never buy. A 6-pack of beer brand my ex-husband used to drink, not me. 2 slices of pizza in a takeout box. Still warm, someone had been eating in my house while I was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with every light in the house blazing and my father's old hunting knife across my lap. At 3:42 a.m., I heard the soft, deliberate creak of a floorboard directly above my head. The attic. The one I had sealed off 6 months ago because the stairs were rotting. I told myself it was the house settling. Old houses do that. But the milk was still staring at me from the fridge like a dare. That was the beginning. The next morning, I searched the entire house like a I pulled open every closet, looked under every bed, checked the crawl space, even climbed the rickety attic stairs with a flashlight clenched between my teeth. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints in the dust, except my own. The windows were all locked from the inside. The alarm had never been tripped. I changed every lock anyway. I bought new deadbolts, a chain for the front door, and a heavy-duty sliding bar for the back. I spent $487 at the hardware store and felt safer for exactly 11 hours. Then the footsteps started. Not loud, not dramatic. Just soft, careful padding. Across the hardwood at night always, when I was trying to fall asleep. They would begin in the hallway outside my bedroom, pause right outside my door, then continue toward the guest room I never used. Sometimes I would hear the faint click of the guest room door closing. Sometimes I would hear breathing, slow, steady, patient breathing, right on the other side of my wall. I called the police on the 4th night. Officer Ramirez was kind, but I could see the pity in his eyes when I showed him the milk, the cheese, the pizza box I had saved as evidence. He walked the house with me, checked every window, every lock. He even dusted for prints in the attic. Nothing. Ma'am, he said gently. Sometimes when people live alone, they start noticing every little sound. You've been through a lot. Maybe talk to someone. I nodded. I smiled. I thanked him. But the next night the footsteps came back, and this time they stopped right outside my bedroom door for almost 10 full minutes. I could see the shadow of feet under the gap. Bare feet. Male. Size 11 or 12. I sat frozen in bed, phone in one hand, knife in the other. 911 already dialed and my thumb hovering over the call button. The shadow finally moved away. I didn't sleep for 48 hours after that. I installed cameras. 4 of them, living room, kitchen, upstairs hallway, and one aimed at the attic door. Wireless, motion activated, night vision. The app on my phone promised real-time alerts. I spent another $320 and felt like I had finally taken control. The first night the cameras recorded nothing but me pacing at 1 a.m., looking half crazy in my bathrobe. The second night they caught the hallway light turning on by itself at 3:07 a.m., no one visible, just the switch flipping. The third night the kitchen camera recorded the fridge door opening slowly, a hand reaching in pale long-fingered Mailand, taking out the new carton of milk I had bought that morning. Then the hand closed the door again. The motion sensor never triggered. The timestamp said 2:44 a.m. I watched the footage 37 times. I zoomed in until the pixels turned to blocks. The hand was real. The fingers were real. There was a small scar across the knuckle of the index finger. I knew that scar. It was my ex-husband's scar. The one he got when we were 22 and he tried to fix the garbage disposal while drunk. But Michael had moved to Seattle 18 months ago. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. He hated this house. He used to say it felt like it was watching him. I called him anyway. Straight to voicemail. I left a message that probably sounded unhinged. Michael, if you're in my house, I swear to God I will kill you myself. No reply. The next week was a blur of paranoia and exhaustion. I started working from the coffee shop downtown instead of at home. I left the TV on 24/7 so the house would never be quiet. I bought a gun, a small 9mm I barely knew how to load in. Slept with it under my pillow. Every night the footsteps came. Every night the fridge opened. Every night something small would be moved. My coffee mug shifted 2 inches to the left. A book turned face down instead of face up. My toothbrush wet when I knew I had dried it. I started talking to the house. Are you enjoying yourself? I whispered one night while staring at the ceiling. Do you like my shampoo? My clothes? My life? A soft laugh answered me from the vent above my bed. Low, mill. Amused. I screamed so loud my throat tore. I fled to a motel for 2 nights. When I came back, the house smelled like cigarette smoke, my father's brand, the one no one else in the family had ever smoked. A single butt was floating in the toilet. The guest room bed was neatly made, but the pillow had a clear head-shaped dent. On my nightstand was a single red rose, fresh, still dewy. I had never bought roses. That was when I realized the intruder wasn't just living here. He was studying me, learning my routines, wearing my clothes. Sometimes I found one of my sweaters in the laundry basket with a faint male sweat smell and a single dark hair on the collar. He was becoming part of my life without me ever seeing his face. I hired a private investigator, paid him $1,500 in cash. He swept the house with thermal cameras, listened for hidden rooms, checked the foundation for crawl space entrances I might have missed. He had nothing. But when he left, he looked at me with the same pity the cop had. Sometimes the mind plays tricks after trauma. He said, I wanted to slap him. Instead I smiled, paid him, and locked the door behind him. That night, the power went out at exactly 1:11 a.m., not a storm. Not a blown fuse. The main breaker in the basement had been flipped. I stood at the top of the basement stairs with my flashlight and gun, listening to the absolute silence of a house that was no longer mine. Then I heard the slow, deliberate creak of someone climbing the basement stairs toward me. 1 step, 2, 3. I fired the gun into the darkness. The shot was deafening. Plaster exploded somewhere below. I ran upstairs, barricaded myself in the bedroom, and called 911 again. The police found nothing. No shell casing where I had shot. I had picked it up in my panic. No blood. No intruder. Just a single set of fresh footprints in the basement, dust bare feet, size 12 leading from a corner I had never noticed before to the stairs. The footprints stopped at the bottom step, like he had simply vanished into the wall. The officer in charge that night was a woman named Detective Morales. She didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me with something worse, professional concern. "Ms. Carter, we can do a welfare check every night if you want, but you need to consider the possibility that this is internal. You think I'm doing this to myself?" I laughed, and the sound was ugly. "I think grief and isolation can do strange things," she said quietly. I kicked them all out. The next morning I found a note on my kitchen table, written in my own handwriting, on my own stationery. "You're not alone anymore, Emily. I've been waiting for you to notice me." The handwriting was perfect. Identical to mine. Even the little loop on the Y I always make. I burned the note in the sink and watched it turn to ash. I stopped leaving the house. I ordered groceries online and left them on the porch. I set up motion lights everywhere. I bought bear traps and placed them in the attic and basement. I know, illegal, but I was past caring. I recorded myself sleeping with my phone propped on the nightstand. The footage showed me thrashing, then suddenly going still at 3:19 a.m. while a dark shape moved across the ceiling like a shadow with weight. The shape had my scar on its hand. I hadn't seen Michael in person in almost 2 years. But the shape was wearing his old college sweatshirt, the one I had thrown away 6 months ago. How? I started researching. I spent days on forums for people who had experienced silent roommates, house squatters, doppelgangers. I read about people who had lived in attics for years without the owners knowing. I read about secret rooms built during Prohibition. I read about men who become obsessed with women and slowly insert themselves into their lives until the woman no longer exists as a separate person. One story made my blood freeze. A woman in Ohio who discovered her ex-boyfriend had been living in the crawl space above her ceiling for 14 months. He had drilled tiny holes to watch her. He had a bed, a laptop, a chemical toilet. He had been eating her food, using her shower when she was at work, wearing her clothes. When she finally found him, he told her he loved her more than she could ever love herself. The police called it erotomanic stalking. I started tearing the house apart. I ripped up floorboards in the guest room. I smashed through the drywall. In the hallway where the breathing always came from, I climbed into the attic with a crowbar and demolished the old insulation. I found nothing but dust and mouse droppings and one single, perfect black dress, shoe size 12, tucked behind a rafter. It was Michael's shoe, the left one. I remembered throwing the pair away after he left. There was a small hole cut in the ceiling directly above my bed, just big enough for a camera lens. The lens was still there, tiny and black, pointing straight down at where I slept. I tore it out with my bare hands and screamed until my voice gave out. That night, the house went completely silent for the first time in weeks. No footsteps, no fridge, no breathing. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt dread so thick it coated my tongue. At 4:07 a.m., every single door in the house slammed shut at the same time. Then the footsteps started again, But this time they were running. Up the stairs, down the hallway, straight toward my bedroom. I had the gun. I had the knife. I had every light on. None of it mattered. The bedroom door handle turned slowly. I fired 3 shots through the door. Wood splintered. I heard a grunt of pain, male, deep, familiar. Then silence again. I waited until dawn, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. When, I finally opened the door. There was a trail of blood on the hallway floor. Real blood. Fresh. It led to the attic stairs and stopped. No body. No trail continuing. Just blood that ended like it had been wiped clean by something that didn't want to be followed. I followed it anyway, in the attic. Tucked behind the chimney where the insulation had been torn away, I found it. A small, perfectly constructed, hidden room, maybe 4 feet by 6. Inside was a sleeping bag, a battery-powered lantern, a laptop, a cooler full of my food, a stack of my clothes neatly folded, and dozens of photographs of me, sleeping, showering, working at my desk, crying on the couch. Every private moment for the last 14 months. On the laptop was a folder titled Emily and Me Year 1. Inside were videos, hundreds of them, all shot from hidden cameras I had never found. And one final Fiala video recorded that morning. I clicked play with trembling fingers. Michael's face filled the screen. He looked gaunt, unshaven, eyes wild with love and madness. Blood was seeping through the shoulder of his shirt where one of my bullets had caught him. "Hey, baby," he whispered, smiling like we were still married. "I knew you'd find me eventually. I just wanted to be close to you again." You were? Never supposed to be alone in this house. It's always been ours. I never really left him. I've been here the whole time, waiting for you to remember how much you need me. He coughed, winced in pain, then kept smiling. I'll heal. I always do. And when I do, I'll come back downstairs. We'll be a family again. Just like before the accident. Just like before you tried to throw me away. The video ended. I sat in that hidden room for a long time, surrounded by the evidence of 14 months of silent invasion. My skin crawled so violently I thought I might throw up. I called Detective Morales. I told her everything. This time, she listened. They tore the rest of the house apart professionally. They found 3 more hidden cameras and another crawlspace entrance I had missed in the basement. They found Michael's DNA everywhere, hair, skin cells, blood. They issued a warrant for his arrest. They never found him. He disappeared that same day. The blood trail ended at the attic because he had climbed out through a vent I didn't know existed and dropped into the neighbor's overgrown backyard. The neighbors had been away for a month. He had been using their house as an exit the whole time. The police told me he was dangerous, obsessed, possibly delusional. They put me in a safe house for 2 weeks while they searched. I didn't sleep. I kept seeing his smile on that laptop screen. When I finally came home, the house was mine again, but it would never feel safe. I sold it 3 months later for far less than it was worth. I moved across the country to a small apartment with paper-thin walls and nosy neighbors who could hear every footstep. I liked it that way. I liked knowing I was never truly alone. Sometimes, late at night, I still wake up to the sound of breathing that isn't mine. I sit up, heart racing, and check the locks. They're always locked. But the fear remains, because once you know someone can live inside your walls without you noticing, you never really feel alone again. The scariest part, I still don't know how long he had been there before I noticed the milk. Maybe months. Maybe. Years maybe since the day my parents died and left me the house he always secretly hated. I will never know. And that uncertainty is the real ghost that follows me now. The lesson: never dismiss the small things, the missing food, the moved objects, the feeling that someone is watching. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, but safety is an illusion if you stop paying attention. Trust your instincts even when everyone else calls you crazy. Because the monsters who hide in your house don't always break in. Sometimes they were already inside. Sometimes they never left. And sometimes the person you fear the most is the one who once promised to love you forever. Stay vigilant, stay loud, and never, ever convince yourself that the house is empty just because you can't see who's living there with you.